Hey, and welcome to another SEO Andy podcast with me, Andy Kinsey. Firstly, a quick apology for having missed a few weeks of podcasts. That's because I had the dreaded COVID. Now, I'm going to try to get through this podcast without coughing. However, if you hear me cough, I apologise. In the background, you can probably hear my little dog bark at some point. That's Maisie the Rescue Dog. You can even follow her on Twitter at Maisie Rescue. She's more popular than me on Twitter. That's slightly annoying. I'm on Twitter too, Andy Kinsey. If you've got any questions about anything that I talk about today, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. That's probably the best way of doing it. Or you can reach out on the website, seoandy.com. Now, today we're going to be talking about two things. Firstly, we've got a Google update that dropped yesterday. That's the 25th of May. And we're going to be talking about how to localize your website. Now, first off, let's talk about that Google update. So, Google yesterday confirmed that it had dropped its first update in nearly 6 months. So, its last update was in November. Well, its last broadcore update, I should say, was in November 2021. And that update surrounded spammy backlinks and it devalued them. And there were, of course, some winners and some losers. And, well, not everyone was happy about that because included in those spammy links were, of course, if you'd bought links. Well, bought crap links, I should say. Or, well, if they weren't marked up as sponsored. Or user-created links. Or something similar. Anyway, so people got marked down for that. And, well, it basically devalued a lot of websites. So there were some winners and some losers of that one. It was followed a couple of weeks later, because it took a few weeks as broadcore updates do to roll out, by a specific update, and I'll go through these types of updates in a second, of product reviews. And product reviews looked at content on websites which was, as you guess, product reviews. So if you were writing product reviews, say for a model train set, or for, say, a new car, then Google wanted to ensure that A, you were writing really good material, B, that you were being fairly unbiased, and C, I should say, that the content you were producing was actually of a good quality. Because in the past, Google had kind of skimmed over this kind of content, and it had allowed people to produce 200 or 300 words as a review, and you kind of got away with it. So actually, they've now cracked down on that, and you've got to produce quality content. And it's not so much about the number of words, but it's about the quality. So, as an example, you could do a review of, as I say, a train model. And it could be still, say, 300 words. But if you've got some really good detail about that model, say its length, its width, whether it's, for example, decoder ready, and you've got video, then that 300 words is probably okay because you've got a video in there, you've got lots of detail, lots of technical detail, and if you've got a star rating on there and it's all schema marked up, then you'll probably pass muster on that specific update. However, if you've just got 300 words in a picture, then you're probably not going to pass muster because Google really wants to ensure that the quality that's being produced is increasing all of the time, and that you are creating also some engaging content. And that's kind of where that update and this conversation leads to, is Google's updates in the last 12 months to 2 years have moved past the we're bored of spam to we want a better user experience. We want people to engage with your content. And if we look at the other update that Google rolled out last year, which is the mid-layer update, as I call it, or the sandwich filling, it was a page experience update, also known as Core Web Vitals. The update was intended to bring better experience to users by prioritizing quality of performance of a given page and, well, even the whole website. So what it looked at was how fast the page loads, both on desktop and mobile, though the ranking was according to whether you're looking on mobile or desktop. Whether elements shifted as they loaded, and that included both whether things moved around the page or whether, for example, if you were loading in, say, Google Fonts, whether the font changed as you loaded it, or whether it was already there on the page, so were you preloading, and whether the page was stable, so whether it was consistently loading that time. The other stuff it also looked at and counted towards your score was it mobile friendly? So, for example, was the font size good for mobiles? And were buttons clickable on mobile? And did images resize on mobile? Were they the relevant size? Could you view them, etc.? Was your website secure? So if you had a form, for example, or you were e-commerce, did you have SSL in place and was it the relevant security level? And did you have intrusive ads? Just as a side note, in my experience, if you've got Google Auto ads on AdSense, Google doesn't care about this. If you're running someone else's ads, yeah, you're probably going to get absolutely trashed on this score. Now, they rolled this out in June to August last year, having threatened to roll it out about 12 months beforehand. And just last month, they issued another update to the scoring and another update for the element on this. But from what we can see, they update this on a monthly basis for your scores overall and the rankings element of it. They don't really tell you about it, but if you go into Search Console, Google Search Console that is, you will, which if you've never used it before, I will link in the show notes, you will be able to see how your site as a whole is doing on each score, and you'll also be able to see just how your specific pages are doing. So if a specific page is failing in a certain area, you will be able to see what you need to do to fix that. So for example, it will tell you if your text is too small on mobile, for example, or if your page is taking longer than a certain time frame to load. Another tool you can use is Screaming Frog, and you can use the Page Speed API to pull data for your whole website and see the data in full, but that is much more complicated and it's probably beyond a lot of people. And really, you don't need to do that if you've got Google Search Console. So, just going back to this week's update. So, this week's update, we started hearing rumblings of it about a week ago on the 16th. It was confirmed yesterday. And because it was only confirmed yesterday, we don't really know what they are updating. But it is a broadcore update. Now, having talked about the types of update, so far we've heard of broadcore. We've got the meat of the sandwich, the experience. We've got specific, which is to do with if they do, for example, the content update that is to do with a specific kind of content. And that can also be if they do a specific category update, such as automotive updates. or if they do a highly local, such as a geo kind of update, say UK or Greater Manchester. So with those three updates, we know what Google algorithm updates do, and they update the search rankings overall, whether on mobile or desktop or both. So this update is a broad core, and it's going to affect everyone around the world, from what we understand. And so, as it was only launched yesterday, we don't really have an understanding of what the effect's going to be. What we do know is there are reports so far that there are fluctuations of up to 20 or 30% in either direction of rankings. We do know Google has said it'll take up to 2 weeks to roll this out, which takes us to the second week of June. We expect this not to be the case. We expect about a week generally for these to be updated, though if they require some tweaking, it could take that second week. And we know that so far, based on those fluctuations, they are in certain categories. Now, we do expect everyone to fluctuate. We are seeing every category fluctuate, but some are doing it more than others. So the big fluctuations are in online communities, sports, law and government, news, and they are also in pets and finance. Now, those are the big losers. Now, I'm not going to tell you who the big winners are. I'm sure if you're in that category, you'll be delighted, and you can tweet me and let me know that so far you're a big winner. And then in 2 weeks, let me know if anything's changed. Because I really want to know how this progresses. So let me know if you're losing right now and what the difference is in your rankings or in your traffic. Because both, I'd be really interested to know how they compare. And then in 2 weeks, let me know the same. So in these categories, what we've seen is when we first noticed these tremors as an industry on the 15th and 16th, there was some real movement. And the reason we are saying these are big losers is because, again, we've seen this today and yesterday when this was confirmed. And the reason we believe these will be the losers is because it's the same movement. So we believe they weren't just the test patch because everyone saw that movement on the 16th, but they're seeing the same movement again. And not only that, we can see the websites within it who are losing. Now, I'm not going to go into the detail today of who I think are likely to be the losers in there, but the kinds of losers I am seeing right now are medium to large e-commerce websites who rely generally on social media, and also excuse me, some publishing media, so news publishers or magazine publishers, I should say, and also I'm not sure if I said finance as a category, but generally it's crypto websites, and reading between the lines, we kind of know why this is. So, with that news out of the way, our next... Sorry, if you've got any questions on that, then do let me know. I'm going to be back next week talking about this one. We've got a bit more information. I didn't want to spend too much time talking around this because ultimately this is brand new and was rolling out literally as we speak. However, I think the reality is those categories I've spoken about are going to be the hardest hit. We are going to see movement across every category there. So it'd be really good to know whether you have seen any movement. So do let me know, whether that's via my website, seoandy.com, or on Twitter, @AndyKinsey. So our second category rather. So our second topic is local SEO. So, someone reached out to me, one of our listeners, and asked how they can improve their local SEO ranking. Now, local SEO is something I've spoken about quite a lot to people, obviously not on this podcast. And basically, local SEO is ranking for both Google Maps, Bing Maps, obviously, but also mobile SEO where you offer a service, and also desktop where you offer a local service, assuming the person isn't using a VPN. And the best way to summarize this is there are a few ways of doing it. Well, actually, that's what other people say. In my view, those few ways of doing it all come together. So you need to take a holistic approach to SEO anyway. And for local SEO, it's not just a case of, oh, you need to use Google Maps. Well, yeah, you do, but you need to do stuff on your website. You need to do stuff elsewhere, and it's, yeah. Anyone who just says, oh, use Google Maps, yeah, just give them a facepalm. So, firstly, let's look at your site structure. So, your website structure is really important for local SEO. So, for example, we're going to look at an example business where you've got multiple locations. But this could easily just be a single location. But hey, here's what it is. So, in this case, you've got, say, yourstore.com as the base, and then underneath it, you've got /location or stores as the folder. And then underneath that, you want your locations. So /, in my case, Manchester or London, which is the individual store location. And then underneath that, you would put /directions or /offers or /venue information. So you could have directions to the store, offers, you could have accessibility information, etc., etc. And the reason you want to split that up rather than have it on an individual page, although you might have directions and opening times on that one page, the initial page, is because you get more bites of the cherry for that store. In terms of if you're in a competitive market, you want to kind of really not obsess, but you want to get more bites of Google's market, as it were. So if someone searches for, say, hair salons in Manchester, if you've got 5 pages that talk about your hair salon in Manchester rather than just one, then you've got more chance. Especially if 2 of them are your opening times, one of them is your offer, and the other one's about accessibility, or one of them's about hiring your location. Suddenly you've got 4 pages, and another one might be your booking page, and then you've got your main site that's going to mention Manchester as well. So suddenly you've got 6 pages that are mentioning Manchester, and instead of just going with 1 page, when you would then have 2 pages about Manchester, it seriously expands, and it's a seriously easy thing to do. In particular, when you're using something like WordPress, when you can duplicate the template, change the information on it, and link them all together, because everything becomes a parent-child division. And the other thing you then do with Google Business is you link it all to /location/Manchester, and it makes life really easy for you. And if you've got a services page within there, so /location/Manchester/services, you can link your services page directly to that location rather than your default location for your shop. And moving on to Google My Business, and this is the same with Yelp and everything else. You want to sign up to them. Same for Yellow Pages, the same for everything else. You only need the free version. Yes, some of you, I know you might have to pay for the yearly version of Never Pay for Yellow Pages. Or people who feel like they need to pay for advertising on Yellow Pages, there's no need. But Yelp, same on Facebook, etc., this all applies to it. Ensure you fill every box. Ensure you use the correct category, and it's the same category as close as you can get across the board. And ensure your name, address, your phone number, which is known as the NAP, is the same across the board. And it is in the correct format. So if there will always be a space in your postcode, for example. If Google, for example, wants to put Manchester in your postcode and you're in, say, Salford, let it put Manchester in your postal address. It's one of those things that you really just need to let happen, and it'll be annoying as hell. But all your postal addresses need to be the same, and then you need to make sure it's the same address on your website. Upload photos at least once a month, even if it's just one photo. Try and upload a video if you can. Ask your customers to leave reviews on Google My Business or on Yelp. Seriously, Yelp and Google will pull in Yelp reviews, it's not an issue. But the more you can do it, the better, because you will outrank your competitors. And the same on Bing. The more you can update the two of them, the better. And on Bing Business, you can literally Bing Places, you can literally import your Google profile. So on your pages, we've talked about how to set up the structure. So this is on your website again. We've spoken about how to set up your structure. I've already mentioned that your address needs to be exactly the same as what's on Google, and your NAP needs to be meeting the Google NAP requirements. I will link again to that in the show notes. You need to, on each page, specifically the main page, so in this case, my example, /locations/Manchester, talk about something that's location specific. So don't just talk about services you offer, etc., etc. Maybe put a picture of Manchester in it, or your shop, your staff, but also talk about Manchester, talk about local train stations, talk about how to get there from a given train station, and use local landmarks. The reality is that people might put hair salons near Piccadilly Gardens. How to get somewhere from X, or a certain treatment near X. And what you want to do is be picking up on those keywords. And because you've referred to local landmarks, you'll pick it up. So yeah. You also, as I say, you want to be putting directions from key transport infrastructure, so buses, trains, or motorways. Motorways isn't always the easiest thing to do, especially if you're in a city centre. You want to use specific content for each page that's not copied from other pages. So as I say, Manchester has its own unique content. Services pages might not be so unique. That's fine, as long as you've got a unique picture for it and it says Manchester Services, for example. Your offers, try and make these unique again and talk about Manchester again, and some of the pages just aren't going to be unique. I get this, but if you can have unique pictures and stuff like that, you've got to make it feel unique. All of your meta tags on each page should be unique. So I always talk about Manchester offers, or Manchester services, and ensure your meta description is also unique. It adds some value to the search rankings page, and it ensures users are more likely to click on you than someone who's just got XYZ services. So one of my biggest tips for aiding your local SEO is to implement structured data. Now, structured data can be done in a few different ways, but most commonly it's done using plugins. However, if you're using Elementor as your theme builder or Divi by Elegant Themes, I'll link to them both again in the description, then you can pick up a module from within the theme, put it into a page, and it will have the markup within it. So this includes things like your address, which should then match the address for that page's address should mark up the page you're linking from Google My Business. Your services, so including the name of it, potentially a description and the price. Again, this is really powerful because it can appear on both mobile and desktop and really helps people. Frequently asked questions, and we are seeing Google do more updates around this. And we saw one just 2 weeks ago where they added more frequently asked questions to the page, and you'll see these show up as people also ask. And you might be wondering why this is really important as we come out of COVID. Well, Google did a Ipsos survey just last year, and it found that 66% of shoppers are more likely to shop locally now than ever before. And that's a really huge stat when you consider that actually people had previously moved towards shopping online, and now they're moving towards shopping locally again. So localization is really important. So we've got this focus on content on your website, the structure of it. We've got Google My Business and Bing Business, as well as the likes of Yelp and others. We've got, as I say, the content on your website, but also we've then got the likes of building links. Now, this comes in a few different ways, and of course, I've already spoken right at the start of this podcast about the spam update that Google did last year and how it removed lots of spammy links. So what we really want is links from high quality local publications or local events or other local businesses. The other category is from people who have used your services and want to sing and dance about it. Those four categories can really, really help you. Now, if you're trying to get into a newspaper, you've got to do something really, really good. Same with lots of other publications, you've got to be doing something different. If you want to get into a blog and get a review, you've either got to pay for it or you've got to ask for that review, and it's one of those, you've got to put yourself out there either way. So it's one of those to think about and ideally earn that link. Reach out to local newspapers, reach out to local authorities, see what you can do. If you're a hair salon, for example, have your hairdressers listen out to what people are saying when they're talking to them, what they do as a day job. If I walked in to my barbers and I'm telling them what I'm doing and they're not saying, oh, would you mind taking a picture of the front of the barbers and putting it on your Instagram, which is free advertising, or would you mind putting a link to us in your blog somewhere? It doesn't really have to be about them. It could be about how they could rank better, then, in fact, it could be about local SEO, then hell, they might not really be doing their job well as a manager or as a way of promoting their business. Because all it takes is a few links to help push them. If I put out an article about how to improve rankings and every example in it is about barbers, then, and it's got links to 5 different barbers, then they might do well out of it. In terms of getting beneficial link juice. The reality is you don't know until you ask. So having your staff listen to people and go, actually, they might be worth asking for some help. People like myself will often just say, yeah, okay, I'm not going to charge you for a link somewhere in an article if it's going to give me some good content. And you never know, they might just say, yeah, if you give me a free haircut. So the final thing I want to say is that local SEO is a game. It sounds really odd, but local SEO rankings are always changing. It's because it's personal. Just because you see yourself ranked number 1 one day doesn't mean you will the next day. Just because you have a bot following your rankings doesn't mean it's going to be accurate either. It is a real game of almost cat and mouse. And by personal, I mean it's truly personal. If you click on someone's page again and again and again, it's likely to show up as your number 1 or number 2 for that term regularly on your phone. There's just no way around it. Google personalizes search, and it may even do so on your desktop. It's a real game. Google personalizes search left, right, and center. And if you go on to incognito thinking you're going to get away with it, the reality is Google knows your device. And yeah, it's not going to make that much of an impact. But I think you'll probably find that Google knows who you are. And it's not tracking you, but hey, weirder things have happened. So if you've got any questions about how to optimize your website for local search that we've not covered today, so better content, improving Google My Business, better structure, link building, and asking people for help, and remembering it's a game, or you've got any questions about Google ranking updates, do get in touch. I'm at Andy Kinsey on Twitter. Or if you've got any questions that you want answered in an upcoming SEO Andy podcast, get in touch with us. SEOAndy.com